In this theory, instead of approaching the origin of pigeons and creoles or trying to find the origins of pigeons and creoles in the past, the origin of pigeons and creoles is said to be uh, found in the universal principles of language learning. As we know that universal principles of language learning, this theory presents the idea that all human beings are born with an innate ability to learn languages. So this theory is similar to baby talk in the sense that it also talks about how people start learning a language, especially an L1. So it presents the perspective of universal language learning behavior, but in contact situations. What it means is that just as people all over the world, all human beings display a particular kind of pattern which is universal when they're learning an L1, similar universal patterns of language learning are displayed by people in contact situations. So, all L1 speakers go through the same stages of language development. Similarly, people who learn a language or who develop a language in a contact situation go through similar stages of language development. According to this theory, then, language simplification, like language learning, is also an innate ability, which means that, as we know, that pigeons arise as a result of simplification of certain languages. So we see, or the people who present this theory see similarities in the pattern of simplification of these languages, which then give birth to pigeons and creoles. The evidence for this theory is that all children go through the same stages of language mastery. For example, they start with simple babbling, they produce these sounds which are not comprehensible or understandable, which have no meanings, and then they move on to following different intonation patterns which are used in their own language community, followed by the utterance of single words, and then finally simple two-word utterances, etc. Also, children produce their own regular patterns. These patterns may not conform to the rules and regulations of whatever language they're learning as a L1, but these irregular patterns, let's say, are regular in the language of the children. So what I'm trying to say is the language of the children may not conform to the norms of the language, but still they are regular patterns. For example, a child would use negation in front of a sentence. For example, instead of saying I don't want to sit, they would say no I sit, no I eat, no I play, etc. So we see these regular patterns in the language of the children across different L1s. Similarly, language simplification is not unique to the users of pigeons and creoles. We see the practice of language simplification in all languages, in all language communities, and this simplification of the language is, of course, used between more proficient and less proficient people. So in case of children, parents would use simplified language with their children. Similarly, the expert users of a language, for example, English speaking people would use a simplified version of English with somebody who was just learning to speak English. So this language simplification is not unique to pigeons only. All languages, all language users practice language simplification also. So all languages have this simple register present in them. It's just that in case of L1 learning, children gradually move away from the simple register, and they are able to move away from the simple register because they have a lot of socio-cultural pressure. They are expected to stop using the simple register and start using the correct, complete forms of the language. However, in case of pidgin users, they are forced to retain the simplified forms because they are not exposed to the correct or unsimplified versions of the language. Um, so they have no model available to them to conform to. But they also have this innate ability to learn a language as all human beings do. So they use this innate ability to change their pidgin into a Creole because that is the only option they have in the absence of a correct model. They continue using this pidgin and start using it as a first language, and it becomes a Creole for them. Um, there's a little bit of debate regarding this principle as to whether it is monogenetic or polygenetic. Some linguists believe that it's monogenetic in the sense that all Creoles developed by means of a single linguistic bioprogram, this innate ability to learn a language. But the other linguists who think it is polygenetic believe that although they also believe in this in learning of pidgins based on the universal patterns of language learning, but they believe that they originated in different parts of the world. So it is not one language which has then given rise to all the pidgins in the world. They may have followed the same pattern, or they may be based on these universal patterns of language learning, but they originated in different parts of the world.